Hola a todos, ¿qué tal? ¿Me escucháis bien, no? No podéis hablar, os tengo muteados, pero, pero os puedo ver. Vamos a esperar unos 2 o 3 minutos a ver si entra algunas personas más y ya empezamos. Eh, la idea es hacer un poco de intro, como os comentaba, en estos primeros minutos de, pues que, primero, que es 5 minutos de qué es esta iniciativa nueva que he lanzado de Escuela Escribano y luego contaros ejemplos de Empower Product Teams en Ontruck, para hacer un poco de telonero, ¿no? de Marty, para ver un poco la intención es ver de que no es una teoría que no se pueda llegar, sino que efectivamente pues es posible, ¿no? Son posiblemente años de trabajo, de cambio cultural y de conseguir que todo el mundo, tanto en negocio como en tecnología, como en producto, esté alineado, pero realmente es un gustazo trabajar así. Y a las 6 se incorporará Marty, que estaremos una hora con él, más o menos. Intentaré dejar pues como al menos 20 minutos para preguntas. Eh, las preguntas usaremos este módulo de Google. Si dais abajo a la derecha en Activities, eh, se pueden hacer preguntas y se pueden votar, ¿vale? Así que durante la charla podéis ir haciendo preguntas y las más votadas o las que yo las que considere que no se repiten y que pues ser más relevantes, pues se las iré comentando a Marty para que nos vaya respondiendo. Vale. Entonces, por último, aquellos que queráis, eso es más un experimento, ya que los eventos en remoto como que son mucho de presentación. Aquello que tengáis tiempo y os animáis, mi idea es hacer networking en grupos a las 7, quien se quede. Entonces, hacer grupitos de 4 o 6 personas y hacer 2 o 3 rondas para conocernos y así conocer gente pues, con venta aleatoria que compartimos, ¿no? Pues para comentar la charla. Entonces, quien quiera, luego ya a las 7 lo comentaré. Pero creo que, bueno, es un experimento. Vamos a ver, luego ya me daréis feedback. Comienzo. Eh, ¿Qué es esto de Escuela Escribano? A ver, como muchos de vosotros, pues a lo mejor sabéis, yo estuve, fui uno de los fundadores de Ontruck y CPO, y a finales del año pasado, en diciembre, pues me tomé un descanso, ya después de 6 años, y necesitaba descansar y luego, bueno, pues tenía varios proyectos personales. Entonces, todos estos meses he estado, bueno, aparte de descansando, hablando con muchos líderes de producto de pues, todas las startups de España, viendo cómo puedo ayudar, ¿no? Cómo puedo ayudar a que tengamos un mejor ecosistema de producto. Eh, y claro, hay mucho trabajo desde la base que se está haciendo, ¿no? De formar a product managers o product designers, pero el feedback general es necesitamos hacer crecer a la gente mejor, ¿no? Que no cometan los errores que hemos cometido muchos o que al final la experiencia te da. Eh, y sobre todo en esa capa de liderazgo, ¿no? Que en las startups es sobre todo muy importante porque vamos a mucho ritmo y, claro, si cometemos fallos, pues que todos lo hemos visto que se cometen, pues eso se paga luego caro. Entonces, el objetivo de esta iniciativa de Escuela Escribano es crear una comunidad de líderes de producto donde compartamos los retos que tenemos, retos de liderazgo de producto, de gestión de personas, de gestión con el C-Level, de estrategia de producto, de hiring, de llevar a performing, bueno, pues de cómo relacionarse de forma distinta, ¿no? con las diversas personas de negocio, pues compartir y ir entrenando cada uno de esas skills de una manera que las puedas aplicar en el trabajo. Quizás una de mis reflexiones que es compartida con muchos de los que he hablado es que es muy difícil hacer un curso de CPO. Yo personalmente no creo que se pueda hacer un curso de 6 meses donde te formes en ser un CPO o en un director de producto. Eh, Creo que en el trabajo hay que, poco a poco, trabajar esas expectativas, esos retos que tienes e ir refinando, ¿no? Esas skills, ya sean hard o soft. Entonces, pues eso va a ser pues la comunidad. De forma más práctica, hemos empezado por una comunidad donde pues estamos empezando a plantear esos retos, esas sesiones. Vamos a tener pues prácticamente sesiones privadas pues todas las semanas sobre diversos temas de producto. Entonces, bueno, yo sé que esto es aportar valor semana a semana, así que quien se anime pues es bienvenido y me encargaré de que consigáis desarrollaros, ¿no? Así que, así que es eso, es bienvenidos. Empower Product Teams. Encontré este resumen, ¿no? Estaba buscando un resumen de Empower Product Teams de Marty. Y me ha parecido esta slide que he encontrado por ahí, me ha parecido que lo resume bastante bien, ¿no? Al final, no estamos hablando, este concepto que ahora nos contará Marty, no estamos hablando de tener a los mejores de los mejores en los equipos y por eso vamos a construir grandes productos, sino es que si tú das a la gente que sabe, pero que no tiene por qué ser el extraordinario, ¿no? Y hay gente trabajadora, a diseñadores, a ingenieros, a gente de data, si les das el contexto adecuado, si les das ese empowerment, esa visión de negocio, esos recursos y les inspiras con esa hacia dónde tienen que dirigirse, pues pueden conseguir mucho más que si solo les exiges, ¿no? Ciertas funcionalidades, ¿no? Entonces, ese es el cambio de mindset de trabajar en una empresa, en unos equipos de tecnología, de producto, donde el roadmap es decidido desde arriba, donde el roadmap pues está claro cuáles son todas las features que teóricamente hay que hacer, aunque no está tan claro qué métricas se quiere mover, a un modelo en el que dejas a los equipos eh, independencia, autonomía, y les das esa visión y esos recursos para que resuelvan esos problemas complejos, ¿no? Entonces, es un cambio importante que no es de la noche a la mañana, desde luego. Nosotros en Ontruck posiblemente nos llevó años y eso que veníamos con una buena base, porque, claro, requiere el cambio de mentalidad tanto en negocio como en los propios equipos de producto como en ingeniería. Porque es de pasar de ser de una manera pasivo a ser proactivo, ¿no? A la hora de buscar esas soluciones. La gran mayoría de vosotros posiblemente ya conocéis qué es Ontruck, que es la empresa que cofundé antes y yo era CPO. Un resumen de 30 segundos. Es una agencia de transporte que busca optimizar todas las cargas que mueven las empresas moviendo de un almacén a otro almacén. Gracias a la tecnología hemos conseguido reducir la ineficiencia en un 50%. Estamos ahorrando cientos de miles de kilómetros y pues, CO2, tiempos, etcétera, etcétera, ¿no? Esto así que digamos que estamos en el sector logístico y es relevante porque es complejo, ¿no? Entonces, pues hay muchos temas que tratar a la vez. Os quiero compartir 4 ejemplos en estos 15-20 minutos. Ejemplos de Empower Product Teams, desde el principio, que eran temas más pequeñitos, al último, pues que ya es más relevante para negocio. Todos estos son ejemplos de momentos en los que posiblemente el negocio pedía una cosa y nosotros le dimos la autonomía a los equipos de producto, a los squads, para que decidieran proponer cómo resolver el problema y cómo atacarlo. ¿Vale? Como veréis, empezamos con un problema muy pequeñito e iremos a algo muy relevante, vamos, que es el core de Ontruck. Entonces, este primer ejemplo, que es desde 2018, tiene que ver, como nosotros en el Ontruck, como os decía, estamos en el sector logístico y el sector logístico, lo que es mover camiones, tiene muchas incidencias. Entonces, nosotros constantemente tenemos incidencias pues, de camiones pues, que no llegan, que van a llegar más tarde, que se quedan parados en un almacén, que no les cargan. Bueno, hay muchas incidencias, ¿no? Entonces, claro, en el 2018 nosotros no teníamos un sistema para registrar todas esas incidencias. Todo eso eran llamadas de teléfono o mensajes por el chat y había un follón en nuestros equipos de operaciones pues que no estaba claro cómo optimizar mejor esos flujos de atención al transportista y al cliente. Entonces, pues rápidamente la opción 1 era, oye, vamos a construir un sistema para guardar incidencias. Como parte de una pieza más de lo que estábamos construyendo, pues hagamos eso, ¿no? Pero claro, había mucha incertidumbre en qué realmente necesitábamos guardar, qué tipo de información. Entonces, el equipo de producto de operaciones que había en ese momento, se le ocurrió precisamente esperar, decir, oye, pues si no tenemos tanta información, vamos a hacer algo que nos permita aprender, algo muy sencillito, y con todo ese aprendizaje ya planteamos bien cuál es la solución mejor y más escalable, ¿no? Y fue tan sencillo como pedir al equipo de operaciones que pusiese hashtags. Junto con el equipo de data íbamos a analizar esas hashtags y, por tanto, éramos capaces de entender mejor qué tipo de incidencias se repetían más. Y en función de qué tipo de incidencias y cómo se cruzaba con los clientes o con el tipo de cargas, pues modificar los procesos operativos, modificar el producto o los diversos productos para prevenir que sucediesen las incidencias, mientras nos aclarábamos cuál era el mejor sistema para guardar las incidencias, ¿no? Entonces, fue un pequeño ejemplo de dar esa autonomía a los equipos para que trabajaran junto a negocio y codo con codo, desde el equipo de atención al cliente y el equipo de producto de operaciones, pues fuesen aprendiendo conjuntamente, ¿no? Que fuesen un solo equipo, que es gran parte de lo que hay que conseguir. Yendo a un ejemplo de 2019, este era un dolor operacional más grande, ¿no? Os cuento. Claro, parece mentira, pero en el sector de la logística, de transporte, todavía hay muchas empresas que piden un albarán en papel. Albarán, pues es el documento pues, que tiene que llevar el transportista y que tiene que entregar a destino, ¿no? Y no solo tiene que entregar a destino, sino que tiene que o bien devolverlo a origen o bien hacer una foto muy buena para que en origen sepan que el albarán está sellado y, por tanto, ha sido entregado, ¿no? Mucha gente entonces no les valía con la comprobación de Ontruck de, oye, que sí, que lo hemos entregado. Teníamos que hacer la foto del albarán y dársela al origen. Entonces, claro, nosotros sabíamos en la aplicación móvil permitido a los transportistas hacer fotos, pero os podéis imaginar que los transportistas corriendo de un sitio para otro con la luz del día en el camión, con móviles pues que no eran de los mejores, pues las fotos eran de todo tipo de calidades, ¿no? Aquí en la gráfica de arriba podéis ver pues cómo pues gran parte de las fotos estaban entre una calidad entre el 25 y el 75%, ¿no? Claramente había muchas quejas por parte de los clientes de que las fotos que estábamos subiendo no eran correctas y que iban a tener un problema de cara a dar por OK que la carga estaba entregada, ¿no? Y si no las daban como OK, no nos pagaban, lo cual pues iba a ser un problema grave para cobrar. Entonces, hubo un Iván, que era nuestro ingeniero de Android, como ya estaba muy pegado a negocio en ese momento, trabajando pues codo con codo en cuáles eran los problemas, dijo, oye, dadme una semana y voy a hacer una prueba de concepto de aplicar Machine Learning para ver si podemos mejorar las fotos, ¿no? Y efectivamente, pues le dimos ese espacio y pues hizo una prueba de concepto y validó junto con el resto del equipo que conseguíamos muchísimo mejores resultados, ¿no? Entonces fue dar ese espacio, esa proactividad, es entender cuál era ese dolor de negocio, un dolor de negocio que no habíamos priorizado, Así que, de hecho, él mismo pues, lo estaba viendo. Y salió, pues efectivamente, con ese espacio, pues al final acabamos aplicando esa solución que había programado, ¿no? Y bueno, pues luego, por supuesto, pues luego fue iterando. Entonces, como veis, pues es otro ejemplo donde pues va afectando más, ¿no? Oye, pues el tema de cobro, tema de relación con los clientes, pues por poner una solución técnica, ¿no? Es en Power Product Teams, que yo muchas veces lo entiendo a nivel de producto, es cómo aprovechar la tecnología al máximo, ¿no? No quedarse en lo sencillo, y, oye, con las tecnologías que tenemos disponibles, cómo podemos aprovechar al máximo y solucionar algunas de nuestras oportunidades o de nuestros dolores. Este es de 2020, este otro ejemplo. No, por eso queremos hacer un siguiente pequeño que hacemos. Esto que estáis viendo aquí es la primera vez que Ontruck hizo una carga a través de un almacén. Es un almacén por el que acabamos moviendo miles de cargas. Está todo vacío, digo, bueno, para nosotros fue muy importante este momento. Y ahora os cuento por qué. Aquí vemos al mozo de carga moverle el palé. Lo voy a dejar aquí. Entonces, os cuento ese ejemplo y cómo afecta en Power Product Teams. Nosotros, en ese momento, desde el leadership, habíamos visto pues, que de cara a seguir creciendo, íbamos a probar una nueva línea de negocio. Y que una nueva línea de negocio que nos rompía bastante el modelo de datos que teníamos y el modelo tecnológico, porque, bueno, no voy a entrar en detalles porque es más complejo, pero digamos que nos rompía todo. De cara en ingeniería era prácticamente rehacer gran parte del core de Ontruck, ¿no? Entonces, claro, así de primeras, pues no era barato, ¿no? Es decir, oye, si queremos abrir esta nueva línea de negocio, pues igual necesitamos 6 meses, parar, plantear y reconstruir el core tecnológico, reconstruir los productos para que puedan aceptar ese nuevo tipo de pedidos y luego ya validarlo. Pero justamente lo que hicimos en ese momento fue plantear el reto al equipo de ingeniería. Y decir, oye, tenemos este reto, ¿no? Queremos abrir esta nueva línea de negocio, queremos validarla porque tenemos que aprender mucho todavía. No sabemos si es algo que queremos a largo plazo. Es un experimento que necesitamos aprender por el camino. Ya habíamos validado como con clientes, un poco cuál era el feedback, pero queríamos empezar a probar para validar. Y claro, cuando tú le das ese espacio, esa responsabilidad, esa autonomía a los equipos y ya entienden, ¿no? Están en el negocio, saben exactamente lo que se necesita, qué se puede sacrificar a nivel de operaciones, qué se puede sacrificar o cómo se puede plantear a nivel de la venta, tienen todo ese contexto de negocio, pues es mucho más fácil que te planteen soluciones pues creativas, soluciones que realmente ataquen el problema principal, que dejen operar, que dejen experimentar, mientras se va desarrollando bien todo lo que es la base tecnológica, ¿no? Entonces, justamente este caso, pues que como decía, que era, si se planteaba en un caso normal, en una empresa tradicional, esto se hubiese tardado 6 meses, nosotros tardamos 10 días en lanzar. Hablando pues, con ingeniería, vimos que de qué manera podíamos hackear los productos que teníamos ahora para testear las hipótesis y empezar a probar con clientes y con transportistas, ¿no? Entonces, este vídeo es precisamente 10 días después de haber planteado el reto y haber descubierto, ¿no?, que podíamos entrar de una manera. Obviamente, luego ingeniería tardó 6 meses en reconstruir bien todo el core y todos los productos, ¿no? Pero fuimos durante esos meses aprendiendo, expandiendo, probando. Gran parte del éxito pues tiene que ver que ya todo el equipo de producto de ingeniería está muy pegado a negocio, ¿no? Sabe perfectamente todo lo que está pasando, sabe qué tiene que tener en cuenta, qué no, trabaja codo con codo a nivel operacional para ver qué necesita cambiar y mejorar, ¿no? Dónde se va a romper operaciones y dónde hay que cubrir, ¿no? Que no se puede dejar abierto. Entonces, este es un ejemplo que la verdad es que estoy personalmente muy orgulloso y yo creo que todos los que participamos en este ejemplo estuvimos muy orgullosos de conseguirlo, ¿no? Y este último ejemplo, que es del año pasado, tiene que ver ya directamente con atacar el margen de Ontruck. Al final, pues nosotros, Ontruck gana dinero entre lo que los clientes nos pagan y lo que nosotros pagamos a los transportistas, ¿no? Y gran parte del éxito de Ontruck es en reducir los kilómetros en vacío y eso lo hacemos agrupando cargas, ¿no? Empezamos agrupando cargas de forma manual y según fuimos construyendo tecnología y plantear todo, ya se hace todo de forma automática, ¿no? Entonces, el año pasado conseguimos con un milestone muy importante, una funcionalidad que el equipo de producto de ingeniería llevaba como años en la visión, luchando y trabajando con ello, ¿no? Que incluso los equipos de operaciones nos decían que nunca llegaríamos a ello, ¿no? Y es un momento muy bonito porque es un momento donde ya el equipo de producto y tecnología que se encarga de esto, el equipo de marketplace, ya realmente es totalmente empowered para trabajar el margen. Ya realmente gestiona todas las palancas para poder mejorar el margen de Ontruck, ¿no? Y ponerse objetivos mes a mes de ir afinando el margen en cada uno de los segmentos de pedidos. Esto, claro, esto lleva años, ¿no? Llevo años de trabajo de conseguir pues, que todo el mundo estuviese en la mentalidad adecuada desde negocio, producto, tecnología, ¿no? Pero bueno, es por un poco por contaros, por compartir cómo estos diversos ejemplos, el primero, pues más sencillito, donde empezamos a dar esa autonomía a los equipos, a este último, donde claramente esto está afectando a, pues al business plan de Ontruck y estás liderando directamente métricas clave, ¿no? Que es al final lo que va a provocar pues el éxito. Como resumen, un poco mis reflexiones y ahora pues Marty nos continuará, ¿no? Profundizará en ello. Para mí una de las claves es que producto, ingeniería y data trabajen muy unidos. Todavía me sorprende aquellas empresas en las que no están trabajando unidos, ¿no? Sino que estén trabajando separados. Tiene que ser un solo equipo. Yo creo que es una de las claves principales, ¿no? El segundo es que los equipos deben tener todo el contexto y visión de negocio. Y todo el contexto incluye el business plan, incluye saber pues, cuáles son esos siguientes pasos que se plantean, con una cultura transparente, una cultura pues, colaborativa, ¿no? Al final, esto tiene que ver mucho con la cultura de empresa, ¿no? El tercero, pues lo que hemos mencionado al principio, de no trabajar en soluciones dadas, sino dar al equipo esos retos, esos problemas complejos que tienen que resolver y que se busque la manera de conseguirlo, ¿no? Que para eso fichamos a la gente y que les dejemos trabajar, ¿no? Y eso, lo mismo, hay que trabajarlo con tecnología y producto para hacer esa proactividad, pero hay que trabajarlo con negocio también para conseguir ese espacio, ¿no? Pero es uno de los puntos clave que cuesta, es todo otro cambio cultural. El cuarto, tener objetivos de negocio en producto. Yo creo que si se siguen teniendo proyectos, si se sigue teniendo solo lanzar funcionalidades, bueno, pues puedes acertar o no puedes acertar, pero realmente hasta que no tengas objetivos de negocio donde puedas mover ese margen, ese número de clientes, ese coste operacional, pues no vas a impactar lo máximo que puedes, ¿no? La gente no va a estar tan conectada. Y por último, pues la autonomía, que he estado mencionando en los diversos ejemplos. Al final, ¿no? Como muchos dicen, oye, ficha gente buena, ficha gente que con ganas, con actitud, y déjales, ¿no? que propongan y que ejecuten, ¿no? Guiando, asegurando que sigan con esa visión, pero que tengan precisamente esa autonomía. Todo esto, claro, es mucho de cambio cultural, ¿no? Posiblemente uno de los temas interesantes a hablar con ahora, supongo que nos contará Marty, bueno, se lo he pedido, y podemos comentar es, oye, cómo hacer ese cambio cultural, ¿no? Sobre todo desde abajo. Cuando uno está arriba, pues tiene quizás más herramientas, pero desde abajo, ¿cómo puedes ir haciendo ese cambio cultural poco a poco, ¿no? Desde tu espacio. Eh, pues hasta aquí mi presentación, mi contexto de cómo eran los Empower Product Teams en Ontruck. Así que voy a ver si está Marty por aquí, o va a entrar todavía, y, seguimos, ¿vale? Así que en unos minutos continuamos.
Oh, I see. Automatically muted. Now you can hear me, hopefully.
Yeah, I can hear you. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, we're great. We are honored to have you here, Marty. Thanks for taking the time.
Well, hopefully I'm on time. I tried to be a minute early here, but hopefully it's on time.
Yeah, perfect. We have been discussing a bit about empower product teams, just to give some examples. So we are really eager to go deep into how to build a great product culture and product teams. So up to you.
Sorry, you might have sent me up as the owner of this meeting, but hopefully people are trying to get in. Are you?
Yeah, don't worry. I will take care of that.
Okay. Okay. So, did you ask me a question though? I didn't hear that.
No. I was saying that whenever you want, we can start the discussion. It will be great to know, to first start like, hey, what's an empowered product team? No, what's that?
Yeah. So just to make sure I understand, my understanding is you wanted to do an AMA where we talk about, you have questions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And sounds like your first question is, what's an empowered product team?
Yeah, exactly. This just to set the basics, so everyone it's aligned.
Yeah. Well, I mean, empowered product team. Empowered product team basically is it's a regular squad, product manager, designer, and somewhere between 2 and 10 or 12 engineers. So it looks a lot like a feature team, looks a lot like a delivery team. But there's 4 real differences. First is that they're given problems to solve instead of features to build on a roadmap. Problems to solve. They can be customer problems or they can be business problems. Second is they tackle the risks up front. So they figure out whether whatever the solution is going to be valuable, usable, feasible, viable. That's critical before the engineers write any code. And that's product discovery, basically, because they have to come up with the solution that's worth building. The third thing is how they actually solve problems. In a feature team, it's pretty common that a product manager defines some sort of requirements like user stories or PRDs, and then gives it to a designer to do workflows, and then gives it to the engineers to build. It's sprint planning. And as you probably know, that's not really agile at all. That's literally waterfall. So in an empowered team, the product manager, the designer, and the tech lead, they solve this. They're there to solve it together. So the engineers are there to come up with the solution, not just to build the solution. The designers are there to come up with the right experience, not just to implement somebody else's experience. and same product. So the three of them are collaborating to come up with a good solution. And the last thing that's really different is in an empowered product team, they're accountable to results. In other words, if they don't solve the problem, they keep iterating until they do. In a feature team, they're accountable to just ship features on time, on budget. Whether or not that actually solves any problem is not their problem.
Yeah.
It's not their fault.
Not their fault.
Those are the four things that really define an empowered product team. And that's what I'm looking for when I meet a new company and a new team. Are they doing those four things? In the best companies, they're doing these things. They've been doing these things forever. But in feature team companies, not usually. They're the senior executives or the boss, and they tell them what to build, and they're just there to implement.
One of the questions that many people have when they work in a company or in a startup that is more like feature factory, a feature team, is like, how do I move from a feature mentality into an empowered? What are the right steps? No, because you need to do a change of culture, probably in the leadership or probably also in the management, in product and technology. There are many things to change. Which should be those steps, no, in order to go step by step and don't try to change too much, which will get blocked.
Yeah, that's a huge topic. What is it? Let me just reframe it. How do you change from a feature team company to a product-led, empowered product team company? That is called the transformation problem. And that is hard. It's always hard, no question about it. However, it really depends on the CEO, the head of the company, wanting to change. If the CEO doesn't want to change, there's not that much. I mean, there's some things you can do for sure, but there's a lot you can't do. And I will just tell you, because this has come up, you already mentioned it, but, product owners, they're not what's necessary. Product owner, in fact, somebody asked, I saw there's some questions. I don't know if I can access them all, but.
Yeah, you can go in activities on the bottom right, activities under Q&A.
Oh, there it is. Okay. I have to work on my Spanish, but that's the,
I can translate also the first one.
Like Enrique was asking, how does the PO role differ from Scrum to empowered? So first of all, is not a good sign that you're even using the term Scrum teams. Scrum is a process, a delivery process. It's not a product team. Product teams use whatever for delivery. Usually it's Kanban, Scrum, XP, but that's like saying, okay, they're using Python. So what do you do in a Python team? It doesn't matter, right? That's the language that's the delivery process. So you really want to stop. This is why I think product owner is so damaging. And I'll admit, I didn't realize how big a problem this was early on. I didn't think it was going to be such a big problem. 20 years ago, when agile methods like Scrum started to get popular, I thought it was a good thing. But it's turned into a very bad thing, to be honest. And partly because all these roles, people say they're a product owner, people say they're a Scrum master. That's just the role you play on a particular delivery process. So if you want to get serious about product, stop saying you're on a Scrum team. Stop saying you're a product owner. That's just the role you're playing on this particular team. What are you? Are you an engineer? Are you a designer? Are you a product manager? That's what matters. That's what matters. And of course, if you're a product manager, you're probably going to cover the product owner role. If you're, a project manager, you're probably going to cover the Scrum Master role. That's what matters, is what job you're really doing on a team. And, product owner responsibilities are very minor. So the truth is, The difference between a product owner role and a product manager is huge. Most product owners have absolutely none of the skills they need to be a product manager. Now, that's a whole different conversation. I wrote a whole book called Inspired that is all about how do you become a product manager? How do you work on a product team? That was for product managers, designers, and engineers. So this is a big topic, but unfortunately, especially in Europe, this is a real problem. Somehow the process people got out of control. Out of control. Yeah.
Andreas is asking, one of the most common criticisms I see about the idea of empowered teams is that it isn't realistic. It's a fantasy. What would you say about that?
Well, I mean, all you have to do is go to one of the good companies and see if it's real or not yourself. I mean, none of the things I talk about in either book, Inspired or Empowered, were invented by us. All we're doing is sharing what good companies do. So, you know, it is true that lots of people say, oh, I could never work like that. And then the funny thing is when I talk to people at those companies, like at Amazon, they say, I don't believe you, Marty, when you say companies in Europe work this way. How could they possibly be that clueless? That's what they think. Yeah. So these are the two worlds we have. And they are two worlds. It is, you know, it's very different. Don't get me wrong, though. This is the part that I think people misunderstand. Working in an empowered product team is not easy. So nobody's confusing that with, you shouldn't confuse that with easy. I would argue it's much harder. It is much harder. Just like it's much harder to be a product manager than a product owner. Anybody can be a product owner. It is much harder to be a product manager. Anybody can, well, it's not true. Anybody can code. There are lots of people that can code, but a real tech lead that is responsible not just for coding, but also discovering what to build, that's a much harder job. So, you know, you have to decide if that's what you want to do. Before you can transform, a company has to decide if they want to transform. So there are a lot of reasons company transform. The biggest one I see is that a company that is good, like an Amazon, starts going after your customers. If they start coming after your business, that gets people serious. Another reason is because they see how valuable companies like Amazon and Stripe and, you know, Slack and Shopify and Spotify, Trainline in Europe, how they see how successful they've been financially, and they ask, like, why are they so successful? And they realize, oh, they work very differently. That's another reason. That's really the profit motive. People want to make more money. Sometimes what happens is that the board of directors replaces your CEO with somebody who understands this. There can be a lot of reasons. But the company has to decide it wants to change. Yep. And if they don't want to change, they won't. Just like, look at all the banks in Europe, in the US too. Banks are terrible typically at product. And they feel like they don't need to change because they feel like the government protects them. Now, that's been true for a long time, but now there's a company, Stripe, that is going after those businesses. And that has them scared for the first time. So now banks are starting to make noises about wanting to change. But we'll see.
Irene asks, how do you balance that the team is delivering solutions, but also participating in the discovery phase? I mean, how do you ensure they change successfully their focus between the short term, this sprint, for example, and the next one?
Which question is that? Where are you?
Yeah, I'm ordering it by popular. If you sort by popular.
Oh, all right. That's useful for me. Okay, this is Irene's question. How do you balance the team delivering solutions, parts? I mean, first of all, if they are delivering solutions, not just shipping features, then that tells me they're probably doing discovery. If all they're doing is shipping output, features, then they probably are not doing discovery. Now, so the real question is, are they supposed to deliver solutions or are they supposed to deliver output? If they're supposed to deliver solutions, then somebody has to figure out a solution that works. That's what we call, that's what product discovery is. So, and if your job is to deliver a solution, you don't have to do discovery. You could just take your best guess, build it, QA test it, deploy it, see if it works. If it doesn't work, take another guess and do that. The problem with that is incredibly slow. Each time will probably take 3 to 6 months through. So it could take you years before you actually solve the problem. So that's why companies say we don't have that much time and money. So we have to be able to try out those ideas faster. That's what product discovery is. So product discovery is all about how do you solve that problem faster. You could just do it. And we always joke because for years, Microsoft, they didn't do product discovery at all. They did what we're talking about, waterfall. And they would take, and I'm not exaggerating, is typical at Microsoft to take 3 years before you ship a good product. 3 years. The first products were terrible because that's what they did, waterfall. But after 3 years, they would often have it. But most companies do not have the money that Microsoft has. And so they can't wait 3 years.
If I follow up on that, part of I think where Irene is trying to go is that it's true that if you are focusing on the outcome, you are discovering the solution, no? But in a way, as you have decided some solutions, the engineers or the designers are working in the first phase, for example, while they finish to discover the second phase or the next iterations. How do you balance that? No, like you have to go in both places at the same time.
Yeah, this is normal. We don't, first of all, don't think of it as a phase. That's part of the problem. Discovery and delivery are happening all the time in parallel. That's what's going on. It's called continuous discovery and continuous delivery. Those are happening all the time. And product managers, designers, and engineers are working on both all the time. So it's not like they say, oh, stop, we have to do discovery, and a month later we go do delivery. That's not how it works. Now, it is also true that the product manager and the designer and the engineers don't spend the same amount of time, each of them, on discovery and delivery. Normally what happens is the product manager and designer spend most of their day on discovery activities. The engineers spend most of their day on delivery activities, but they're helping the other activities in the rest of the day. We usually need about 30 minutes a day from the engineers, and we need about an hour a day from the product manager and designer to answer questions that come up in the delivery work. Think of it just like you have coding going on and you have QA testing going on. Those are going on all the time. Those are two activities. You also have discovery work going on and you have delivery work going on all the time.
Good. We can go to the next question.
Oh, Javier's product.
Yep.
What are the differences between an empowered team and a small startup versus a large corp? Well, the big question is, in that large corp, is it a good large company like an Amazon, like a Google, like a Netflix, like a Stripe, or are they a bad large company like a bank? If they're a good company, it's actually not all that different when you look at a specific team. Because fundamentally, product teams, first of all, we're trying to get to product market fit. Once we have product market fit, we're trying to grow. And once we've grown, we're doing new variants of that product. We're going to additional markets. We're going to additional parts of the world. So we're always working on getting product market fit for another area. We're always working on growth. So that happens in big companies, small companies. It's not all that different. There are some differences in a true startup versus a large company that have not to do with how they work, but have to do with who likes to work there. So and by the way, I much prefer startups. I've worked at both big companies and startups. I like startups. It's a personal preference. In a startup, well, let me put it this way. In a big company, you have lots of people there to help you, and they have all kinds of specialties. There's HR people, there's finance people, there's facilities people, there's all these different people there to help. And you can just focus on your one thing. In a startup, you're doing everything. I like that. Some people don't like that. I always warn people, because I advise a lot of people on their career, because they ask me about their career. And so I want to know, well, what do you want to do? What kind of work-life balance are you looking for? So normally I tell them, if you're looking for good work-life balance, don't join a startup. It's not good work-life balance. You're going to have so much pressure on you. But even sometimes I say, like, don't join Tesla, don't join Amazon, because they will work you like it's a startup. So you have to this is a cultural thing. It just depends on what people are looking for. Some people tell me at this stage of my career, I just want to work on something I love and I want to work on it all the time. And other people say, I just had my first child. I want to really enjoy this time. I don't want to spend all my day at work. I know both kinds of companies. I want everybody to be happy. So I don't want you to go to a place you're going to be miserable at.
Nice. This question is from Diego.
Oh yeah, I listened to an episode of Lenny's podcast. I mentioned product teams should spend more time on solution than problem discovery. Yeah, that's a good question. By the way, I'm glad you listened to that podcast, because we talked about some very, very important topics. And if any of you are interested in learning more about this stuff, that's one of my favorite podcasts I've done. So I've done a lot of them, but that was a good one. And anyway, one of the common confusions, and by the way, I'm talking about good product companies. I'm not talking about feature team companies. I'm talking about good product companies. But one of the common confusions is that how much time do we spend understanding the problem we need to solve versus how much time we should spend on coming up with a good solution to that problem. That's called solution discovery versus problem discovery. Now, one of the issues I see is that a lot of product teams spend so much time understanding the problem, which, by the way, is good. We love that. But they spend so much time doing it, they don't have time to spend on the solution. Now, you could say, why don't they have time? Because their CEO is now yelling at them. Their CEO is saying, you've already spent 3 weeks. We need to ship this week. You've got 4 days, So then they've they spent too much time understanding the problem, and they didn't save enough time for the solution. And the reason that's important to know is that, first of all, most of the time, the problem is not that unclear. and what's really going on is teams they're spending time there and they're enjoying it, but they're really not getting a lot of value from that time. At least, the first days you get a lot of value, but then it goes way down quickly. It's like, we understand. And what they're not appreciating is how much time they need to spend on the solution. And this is what you really need to understand. Obviously, you need to be solving a real problem. If you're not solving a real problem, then nothing you do matters, right? Who cares? However, most of the time, teams are solving a real problem. Their issue isn't that. The problem is, or the issue is, their solution isn't very good. And so your customers don't buy your solution. They buy your competitor's solution. That's why you lose. So how do you fix that? You get a better solution. That's what most of product discovery is, coming up with a better solution. And you need to realize the outcome needs to be, they won't buy your solution if it's not better than the alternatives. So the point is, be sure you save lots of time, as much time as possible, for coming up with a winning solution. And that's solution discovery.
Yeah. That's also related, I think, no, with having strong product knowledge about the industry you are in. No, like you can, let's say, you have enough experience to know that the problem is there, that you don't have to invest so much time, that you can really focus on getting to the best solution. No, don't get attached to this trying to discover all the details of the problem.
I mean, good product knowledge, good product sense helps in both. It definitely helps in both. Because, you know, another way of saying good product sense is you really understand your customers. Well, that's going to help you understand their problems much faster, like you're saying. But it's also going to help you come up with solutions that they're going to love because you understand them much better. So it helps everywhere.
Yeah, which is related to continuous discovery, no? As you mentioned before. If you just do it once in a while, you need to invest more time. If you do it continuously, you have that vibe of the market.
That's true too. Yes, it just helps everywhere. I think this is one of the differences between a product manager and a product owner. Again, product owner is a process role. Product manager, deep understanding of your customer, what we were just talking about, deep understanding of the data, which is another part of that, deep understanding of your business and how it sells, how it markets, how it funds, how it monetizes, compliance, regulatory, privacy, and then deep understanding of your industry. Without that, there's no point to having a product manager.
Nice. Next question is from Nicholas.
Nicholas. Oh, where's Nicholas? All right. We're trying to migrate from a feature team to a problem solution team, but the amount of uncertainty is so high that our team is getting tired with all the iterations and losing innovation. How do we manage that? Well, I mean, Nicholas, there are people called discovery coaches that's all they do is help teams get better at discovery. So first of all, it is hard. Like I said, it's much harder to come up with a winning solution to a problem than it is to just implement features. So if you want me to tell you it's easy, I'm not going to tell you that. It's harder. I just got off a call with a startup that's actually in Europe. They're in Sweden. And they are working on a very hard problem. It's a problem that companies have been working on for about 10 years. Okay. Now their startup is only about a year old, but it's a hard problem. They know it's a hard problem. And they were basically, I was sort of coaching them on how they can make sure they're getting their most out of these iterations, and they can, because their hardest part of the problem is value. Coming up with a solution that people actually will buy. That's what's hard. They have lots of ideas and they've been implementing lots of ideas, but so far customers are not willing to buy that. So they need to get better at solving it in a way that really helps. So, that's part of what's going on, maybe. I don't know, Nicholas, there's so many things that could be going on there. One is maybe you're spending too much time on the actual problem and not on the solution. That's possible. Another possibility is you're using your engineers to do the prototyping instead of a designer. That's another really common problem because the engineers are going to take way too long. One of the things I tell product teams is if you're good at product discovery, you're able to test out about somewhere between 20 and 50 ideas every week. If you're not able to do that, you're going too slow. So it could be any of those things, could be all of those things. One idea is a discovery coach. Another idea is you could read the book Inspired. It shares a lot of techniques. Another idea is the book Sprint by Jake Knapp. It talks about another technique that's all discovery. Another book is Teresa Torres's book, Continuous Discovery Habits. All of these books will try to share other techniques that you might not know yet. And so that can help. But anyway, it's hard to say from that, Nicholas. Hopefully they're useful suggestions, but I would need to know a lot more to know what maybe is going on or not going on.
Good. I have a question for myself. One of the big changes in how great product teams work is how they include engineers in all the discovery and all the design of the solution, not just focusing, as you mentioned before, in a waterfall process that they are just at the end, just coding. And that's a big change in mentality many times with engineers. I remember in my previous company, when we decided to go to product engineers because we wanted to build this concept of empower product teams, there was a big shift in mentality that needed to be done by the engineers. There were many that were eager to jump in, become product engineers, talk to business, talk to users. But there were others who said, I don't want to go there. I'm comfortable here, just coding, and it's more like tech, the pure tech engineers. And I see that in many startups that I help. What do you think about this, this change of mentality in engineering and when they want or not want to go there?
Well, first of all, see, there's a difference between engineers and then product managers and designers. On a product team, you typically have one product manager and you have one designer, but you have many engineers. I mean, many could be a minimum of 2, maximum of about 12, somewhere in there. So if you have a product manager or designer that doesn't know what they're doing, you have a big problem. However, with engineers, let's say you have 6 engineers, typical average team, 6 engineers. All you really need is one senior engineer that knows about discovery and delivery and cares about both. It's perfectly fine to have 2 junior engineers. We say junior, like somebody like right out of university. They've never done this before. They're just learning how to code. And they might say, I'm comfortable with that. I just want to code. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, it is true that a lot of in the best companies, when they hire engineers, they try not to hire engineers that only want to code. However, I will tell you, even in some of the greatest companies in the planet, a lot of their engineers just want to code. That's okay. The way to think about it is, if your tech lead, your senior engineer, does not know and care just as much about what you build as how you build it, then you have a big problem. And that's where you need to fix that. Now, the other thing I'd say is that there are many engineers that say, I want to code. But as soon as you bring them to a customer and they see customers in having pain, real problems, they change what their view is. They're like, I want to fix that.
Yeah.
So a lot of engineers say that because they've never been to customers.
Yeah. There is nothing more powerful, I think, that bringing engineers with you to user testings. This is something we started to do many years ago, and it worked great to change that mentality, because they see the suffering when they were using the products.
The other thing I should say, and I don't like this, but it's true. There are a lot of product owners. Now, I mean that like not product managers, product owners that went to a Scrum class, and they think their job is to protect the engineers from distractions. And so the engineers don't really say, I just want to code. The product owner says, my engineers just want to code. And they're not telling the truth.
Yeah.
And I've had that because I have had product owners tell me that. And then I go to the engineers and they say, who told you that? Well, a product owner told me that because the product owner thought that was their job.
Good. Next question is from Fran. By the way, the list of questions is not updated automatically. So I'm just, maybe you are not seeing it as the first one. Have you changed your mind at all about remote product teams since COVID and the surge in remote work?
It's not so much, there's sort of two questions there. One is, do I still think co-located teams are better than distributed teams? Yes, I still think that. And by the way, the evidence today is stronger than ever. However, that's not the question for most teams. Most companies don't have the choice today of co-location. So that's not the question. The question I get from everybody is, how can we get the most success given that our teams are not co-located? That's the real question. And what I try to explain is this is complicated because teams, like we said at the beginning, good product teams are doing discovery and delivery all the time. The delivery work works quite well with remote employees. Some companies are actually finding that it can work better than if they were together, because it's really a trade-off of distractions and communication. But for delivery, the communication isn't so high. And the distractions are very relevant. So if you've got a good home office setup, you can often do better at delivery. The problem is not with delivery. The problem is with discovery. Because discovery requires real collaboration, and real collaboration is a lot harder than when we're spread around the world. It's hard when we're in different time zones, even. So, this is not a secret. It's harder. I know with one of the companies I advise, do you know what time we actually have to have our discovery calls? 10 at night. Because that's the only time that everybody does not have distractions like children to take care of or anything. We're doing a 10 at night call. It's the only time that works for people. Okay. It's all right. I'm okay with it if they're okay with it. But, it's a lot harder to collaborate. And what happens is if you don't want to collaborate, then you just start passing around artifacts. And very quickly, we're back to waterfall. So this is a very complex topic. But some people, like Elon Musk, who basically is got the most innovative companies in the world. You can argue he's kind of a nutcase, but he is really good at product. He's like, yeah, remote, not happening. We're all about co-located teams. In fact, they're extreme on that. And his position is, if you don't want to come into the office and work, you're fired. It's just that simple. So most companies, but he can kind of do that because so many people want to work on what he's working on. But, you know, if you're a bank, you can't do that. If you're most companies, you can't do that. So anyway, that's a challenge. It's a super hard problem right now. I will tell you that most companies that I know are trying to kind of come up with a compromise where most of the time people work from home, but they have several things, either 1 or 2 days a week where they come together with their team, or 1 or 2 times a quarter they get together physically as a team on a like in an offsite together, because there's a lot there. I mean, we could talk for an hour about this. A lot of people that are not spending face time with their team are feeling very disconnected from their team. By the way, it's a myth that you work less hours when you're remote. On average, they're working more. So there's a lot of myths about this. It's complicated.
And in
but
that
I will say, let me just say one more thing. My favorite thing about remote work, which honestly we needed even before the pandemic, my favorite thing is getting access to talent all over the world. That is, I would rather have a remote team of great talent than a co-located team of weak talent.
Yeah. And in that, I also see the challenge with remote of being far away from your users. For example,
to be honest, we've had that problem no matter, even when you're co-located. Most of the time, the users are far away. Most of the companies I work with in India and China and in Brazil, they're working on products for users all over the world. So we're used to that. And we have very good tools for that.
For example?
Well, we can do user tests remotely. Terrific. Yeah, we don't need to be face to face. In fact, a lot of teams prefer it because you don't have travel involved. You can do 5 tests in the amount of time you could have done 2 before.
Next question is from Christina. I don't know if you see it at the top.
I'm trying to figure out how I get it to show me the.
Yeah,
okay, there it is. This is Christina's, what would you say are must-have skills on a product manager? And what's the best way to sell it at each of them? Is that the question? Good. Yep. So if you Google the term SVPG assessment and SVPG coaching plan, you will find 2 articles that answer that exact question. What are the skills and how do you develop them? They're also in the book Empowered, but you don't have to buy the book for that. You get the access to the articles for free.
But she has homework. We all have homework there.
Oh, the term again was SVPG assessment and SVPG coaching or coaching plan.
Yeah, I will follow up on an email with the links we have mentioned today.
Thank you, Nicholas.
Next question from Javier about experiments.
Javier.
With 2050.
I'm looking for it.
Yeah, if you sort by popular again.
I'll do it again. Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to change what it is, don't you? All right. What are the main? Oh, we talked about that from Javier. The main differences. We talked about that.
Yeah, now it's the third one. Sorry. With 20-50 experiments per week, how do you track all the results of those experiments?
Where is that?
Is the third one.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, I'm so with 20 to 50. Well, first of all, when we say, if you listened, I actually said 20 to 50 iterations. Sometimes there are multiple iterations in the same experiment. Sometimes each iteration is its own experiment. So it's not exact. I didn't use the word experiment there. I used iteration because a lot of the times all we're doing is trying several different approaches to the same solution. So we know the problem. We try lots of different solutions to that. And so, okay, this is really bringing up a broader question. In product discovery, sometimes we use qualitative techniques and sometimes we use quantitative techniques. Quantitative techniques first of all, we need both, just to be clear. Quantitative techniques tell us whether this works or not. Qualitative techniques help us figure out why they don't. And most, when we talk about 20 to 50, iterations per week, most of those are probably qualitative. And as soon as you decide that this is not very good, we iterate. So there isn't a whole lot of stuff to keep track of. You don't do a report. You don't, who are you going to send the report to? You're the team. You're doing this yourselves. So you are, as soon as you decide this is not good. Now, what do we mean when we say we don't like this or this is not good? It means either we don't think it's usable, we don't think it's valuable, we don't think it's feasible, we don't think it's viable. Now, a lot of times we don't even need to show that to customers. As soon as we see it ourselves, we realize there's a problem. A lot of the iterations in product discovery never even make it to a customer. Why show it to a customer if we know it's bad? So for example, let's say my designer comes up with an iteration, and as a product manager, I look at it and say, legal will not let us do this. No reason to show that to a customer. So you just iterate. And now you come up with another, and now maybe, yeah, this is good. Legal's going to be fine with this. Let's show this to a customer. So a lot of times it's just like that. Nothing. So I don't want you to think of it as bureaucratic where you have to fill out a report or anything. As soon as you decide it's not very good, you iterate. That's what discovery really is.
Nice. Next one is from Juan Carlos. This one, the one at the top.
There it is. How an empowered team balances tech debt and new solutions. Well, this is the tech debt issue. Just to be clear, this is an issue whether you're empowered teams or not. This is in a lot of companies, and that's a big topic. First of all, tech debt is a very big topic, and the main way, the best practice in terms of tech debt is it's not up to the product teams. If you leave it up to the product teams, that's not their problem. That's not what they're working on. And tech debt is something that spans all product teams. So the way it usually works is the head of product and the head of technology decide what percentage of the engineering resources are going to work on tech debt. It's usually a minimum of 20%. And if you're in big trouble, it's a maximum of about 50%. And those resources those engineers are under the control of the head of technology, and they do it however they want to do it. Product teams, product managers have no say in that. That's the best practice. And so let's say, that 25% of the engineering capacity is on tech debt. That means that the empowered product teams have 75% of the engineers to work with. That's all.
Good. Irene asking another questions. How to escape from PM loneliness?
Wow, that's an interesting question. How can PMs rely on Well, the big issue is, I've never seen PM loneliness, actually. In good companies, it's not a thing because at a minimum, first of all, there's all the other product, your peers, but at a minimum, your manager, their job is to coach you. That's their primary job. So if you feel lonely, to me, that means, where is your manager? Do you know, I've been telling people this because it surprises so many, but I didn't realize it at the time. But for the first 10 years of my career, I worked at the same company. It was HP Labs. It was a very innovative company at its time. And I was an engineer for those first 10 years. But every single day, I had at least one manager responsible for helping me get better at my job. That's, in a good product company, that's normal. Everybody has somebody helping them get better at their job. So if you don't have that and you're truly on your own, I don't know what your managers are thinking, but that's not good. So maybe you mean something different than PM loneliness. So I'm not really sure.
I think maybe it's like, if I follow up on that, is that if the context of the company is so big that there are many verticals which are very different, you cannot have discussions between you and your peers, because the knowledge is so different. Then it's true that maybe with your manager, but maybe even your manager doesn't have the full depth of knowledge. So you are kind of alone there.
Well, first of all, I would also, a big part, the bigger the company, the more important it is for your managers to share what's called the strategic context. Because the worst thing, and maybe this is what you mean, the worst thing is if your product team feels like they're just a tiny little cog in a giant wheel. You don't want them to feel that. You want them to feel like what we're doing is very important, and here's how it contributes to the whole. Even if you have 200 product teams in your company, you need to make sure if each product team is going to make good decisions, they need to understand the context. That includes the product vision, that includes the product strategy, that includes the team topology, that includes the different objectives that teams are working on. You need to know that if you're going to know how your work fits into the bigger work, to the bigger picture. So maybe what is being suggested there is, what if I don't understand that bigger context? And if you don't understand that bigger context, you're not going to be able to make decisions, good decisions, and you won't be able to come up with good solutions.
Great. This one from Alejandro, it's interesting, because it's more like from companies that are not just digital, but they probably operate with offline touch points.
Is this the Alejandro one?
Yeah, Alejandro one. Yeah, how product relates with the content of service.
Well, normally when we talk about product, we mean the holistic view of product. That includes digital and offline. So for example, if you're working on the app for your phone for Uber to get a ride, that includes obviously all kinds of things that are offline as well as online. It's the whole experience. When we talk about a product designer, a product designer is not just a user interface designer. They're a product designer. It's the whole experience. When you're working on Amazon.com, you care about returns, you care about inventory, you care about all kinds of things that you don't actually, see on the experience itself or touch. So normally when we talk about product, we mean all touch points. That's the norm. And it's not every company, of course, but it's most companies have some combination.
Nice. There is one which is kind of a follow-up, which is from Katia. which is related of more like what's happening if there are so many products and problems related with product and the service, and they end up, everything ends up disconnected. How do you ensure that that doesn't happen?
Yeah, this is actually very related, because this is why it's so important to understand. When you have multiple product teams, you need the role of managers becomes more important, not less. Okay, so a lot of people misunderstand the idea of empowered product teams. They just say, here's a team, go have fun. That's not how it works. The managers play a big role. In fact, I've been trying to tell everybody, in an empowered product team, you don't need less management, you need better management. So, for example, the answer to that is, this is what design managers do. This is exactly what they do. So, for example, of all the companies in the world that I have visited, the company that handles Katya's question better than anyone else I've ever seen, by far, is Apple. When you get a new pair of whatever, or a new phone, or how about a new pair of AirPods, and you got your pair, it came in the mail, you open up the box. You notice your laptop notices that, your phone notices that, your watch notices that. Everything automatically says, oh, Marty got a new pair of AirPods. How does that happen? Most companies have no chance. But Apple, how did they make that happen with so many employees, so many product teams? Because the design managers are doing their job. So it's not just that the AirPods team has to do the right thing. It's not just that the Siri team has to do the right thing. It's not just that the iPhone teams have to do the right thing. They all have to make sure that they're doing the right thing together, holistically. And that's what the design managers do. What's special about Apple is I've never seen a company do it that well at that scale. It's not that hard to do that well if you're a small company. But at Apple's size, that's impressive. But that's what's going on. It's not an accident that all your devices recognize each other and do the right thing.
And this is, I'm connecting this. I don't know if you have seen the tweet the other day about how Google promotes engineers and how that ends up with products being they stop working on new products, and how's that different from Apple, that they don't have those incentives at promotion. So in Apple, they keep working on the same product after years, while in Google, once a product person or engineers deploy something, they get a promotion and they move to a different team, and then they end up, all the products end up disconnected, no?
I did not see the tweet, but I do know both of those companies pretty well. And actually, they're not very different. So I'm not sure what the tweet was trying to say. But at both Apple and at Google, people get promoted all the time. Sometimes they go take on more responsibility or a different area. Sometimes they stay with their team. In fact, some of the teams I know that have been together the longest are actually at Google. So just because you get promoted and you now are ready for more responsibility doesn't mean you have to leave your team.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure. I will tell you, be very careful what you read on social media. Most of it is terrible.
Yeah. Thank you for the near advice, no, after knowing both cultures. Claudia, well, we have like one more question. I will get that one from Claudia, which is like kind of going back to the beginning, but like advice, not to those people who are not in a great company, in a great product company. what would you do? Move?
Yeah.
Or how do you change?
Well, good. No, that's fair. Because I'd never tell people just leave right away. You do have to decide what you want to do with your career. So that's important. You need to decide. But I always try to encourage people before they leave and go to a different company, before they do that, go to your manager and say, what do you think about doing an experiment? What if we do an experiment for a quarter or two where we try working like one of the better companies? If it works, great. Maybe we'll become a much better company. If it doesn't work, it's just an experiment. Most companies I know will at least do that. They'll at least run these experiments. So I would tell you it's very likely that your manager will say, sure, let's do that. But now it will be back to you. Okay, are you willing to do your side of that? And for a lot of people, it means, for example, if you want to start working like we're talking about, you need to move from being a product owner to a product manager, or otherwise you really don't stand much of a chance. So are you willing to do that? If so, you should absolutely do it. And my argument to you is it will always help you. No matter what you do, no matter where you go, it will be valuable things you learn. But if you want to stay as just a Scrum product owner, I can tell you right now, your team will probably fail. The experiment will be considered a failure. And okay. So
Nice. Well, thanks a lot, Marty. It has been a pleasure to host you today and get to know more how to build great product culture and great product teams. And we will continue sharing those ideas in order to improve the product ecosystem in Europe and in Spain. Thanks a lot for your time.
Well, thank you for inviting me, and good luck, everybody.